And this is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, coming to you right from the podcast layer, joined by producer Phil.
Hey.
Philville.
What's up, everybody?
Should be a fun show today. California's got a long list of problems. The problem is that they've set up a system where they believe that everybody has to stay. Well, we're still in a free country, and when you make things unreasonable, those that are the most capable, those that are the high tax earners, they can leave. And they made it even worse that if you say you were somebody like Elon Musk, who left, if you maintain very much of a presence in California, they're looking for any excuse. Well, how many days? Well, how can I still go after you in tax? They use the California tax and fee. California tax and fee. What is that called? I can't get quite the last of it out. California tax and fee. Anyway, it is the organization responsible for taxing you. They're like the franchise tax board. If you maintain any presence, they try to claim that you're still a resident. Thus, while somebody like Elon Musk might have maintained more of a presence in California, he is motivated by our regulations to completely leave. And when those big players leave, they take with them jobs. Even Walmart is talking about closing potentially 250 stores, the stores that are not making at least a 5% profit. Well, they're looking at stores in Riverside, LA, and a few in Fresno, that they're only going to keep the more profitable stores. Well, that represents jobs. And what about all of those non-corporate jobs, the non-Walmart jobs, the little business that they're in the same shopping mall and it's a taco shack or it's a beauty salon? What do they do when their business model was predicated on having an anchor store right near them? They're just private individuals. We have made it so difficult here in California through regulation, through high taxation, and through extremely high labor rates, extremely high property values. I don't know what you can do about the property values, aside from all of the regulations that make it significantly more expensive to build anything. But we have all of these exceedingly well-off individuals that have decided, well, let's see. If I moved my business to Texas or Tennessee or Florida, all three of those states, by the way, they don't have income tax, and their economies are rocking. As opposed to California, we talk about, or Lord Gavin talks about us being the fourth largest economy, but he completely ignores the fault line that's running underneath the California economy because of what I consider to be foolish oversights and lack of planning, and a willingness to, rather than address the problem, BS his way through it. So if we were to look at Tesla's left, with it a whole bunch of jobs. Most of what was going on with Tesla, they went to Texas. All those jobs. Oracle left. Hewlett Packard. Both of those would be Silicon Valley, Oracle and Hewlett Packard. In and out. A traditional American company. I eat there regular. The place is awesome, but they moved their corporate headquarters because of unreasonable rules, regulations, and taxation. And all of that rests at the feet of the Democrats, because since about 2000, the Democrats have controlled both houses and the governorship. We got 8 years of Gavin. Before that, 8 years of Brown. So 16 years where it's been completely controlled in the governor's office by a leftist. And Brown, frankly, he was great in comparison to Gavin because at least he'd give it to you straight. I think he made a bunch of wrong moves, but he'd give it to you straight as opposed to no matter what's happening. Gavin is willing to lie his way through it. And he will say, oh, well, no, I'm not spinning. No, you're just not seeing it right. Let me tell you the real story. Well, the real story is we went from a surplus early in Gavin's career as governor to at least $18 billion in debt for just this fiscal year, not counting the existing debt, which is somewhere around 140,000, depending on where you look, maybe as high as 170,000. Who do you believe on what numbers you get? Even the governor is saying 124, and you know he's padding it to make it look good because all that Gavin cares about is Gavin and acquiring more power. That's largely why he's ignored California as he's run for president. He's become the anti-Trump candidate rather than the governor who cares about his state. He can claim about caring about his state, but the truth is, you know, he went to hang out with his boyfriend, Alex Soros, there in Davos with the World Economic Forum, and he proceeded to specifically trash the American president on foreign soil to foreign leaders. That's anti-American. What happened to having respect and defending our own? Gavin doesn't do that. Gavin defends Gavin. And the rest of the nation, anybody that doesn't live in California needs to realize Gavin will tell you anything in the name of acquiring more power. He will spin anything in the name of acquiring more power. I truly consider him to be a national embarrassment. In my opinion, he is about as corrupt as it gets. The lawsuits haven't come, so, you know, he gets innocence until proven guilty in the eyes of the law. But in my opinion, yikes. There was a song that was written by Tom MacDonald not too long ago called The Devil is a Democrat. Now, Tom MacDonald is a rapper, kind of raps about current day issues, tends to be a little more on the conservative side, or at least the common sense side of issues. And he wrote a song called The Devil is a Democrat. And in the early version of the song, Gavin was the devil. Now, apparently, there was probably some threats, and he changed that. But I thought it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Look that up, folks. You'll get a good laugh. The Devil is a Democrat by Tom MacDonald. So with all these high income earners, and 50% of the California budget comes from capital gains and from very high earners. Now, the rest of us get hit with regulations and taxes in other ways, but as far as just income tax, if you're not in that upper 1%, you don't pay a super high number. They nail you in other ways. Our property tax is crazy high. Our regulations are high. Our gas is high. Our unemployment's high. For the fourth largest economy, why do we have the largest unemployment of any state? I'm confused. Gavin, is that a crack? A crack in the facade? Why is it that we spent $24 billion and it's gone up since then? Some people say as high as $37 billion went to homelessness. But the government doesn't disagree that $24 billion. And so we have the most homeless and the highest percentage of homeless, and we put in crazy money. And what happened? Why, we got more homeless. Good job, Gavin. I'm proud of you. What about unemployment insurance? During COVID, we had this huge amount of fraud. Billions went to people that were not eligible for unemployment insurance. And what did Gavin do? And he was warned by the Trump administration that he had loopholes in the system. Why? Gavin did. Well, no, he did go on and try to look pretty for the camera, but I don't think he did anything else. In case you don't notice, I don't love Gavin Newsom. Nobody should love Gavin Newsom except maybe his kids and his family. And I hope that God still has love in his heart, but I don't know that Gavin's actually worthy. So yikes. So remember during COVID early on when Gavin sent us money back from the state because we had this huge surplus, largely because there was capital gains on Uber. So send us all this money. Rather than save money, we have a budget of somewhere around $250 billion per year for the state of California. That's not counting debt. That doesn't really address the unfunded liabilities. That's just general. And a whole bunch of that, there's no leeway because we've passed state laws about a certain percentage needs to go to schools and a certain percentage needs to go to this. So it's tied up money. He doesn't have a lot of leeway. He only saved for a rainy day fund $24 billion. Less than 10% got saved for a rainy day fund. And now all of a sudden, we're in debt. The fourth largest economy is truly in debt. We're spending money like drunken sailors, even though we have projected revenue that is going up in the state of California, and we have for the last couple of years. In other words, money's coming in. We're just spending it faster than it's coming in, as if there's nobody at the helm. Gavin was busy getting his hair done rather than taking care of state business. So I see California as this place that's rife with mismanagement. So I talked about all those people that are leaving California, all of those well-off people. That doesn't even count the huge number of people that they're not necessarily rich, but they're business owners. They're motivated. They're the productive people in society. With them are going jobs. They've estimated since August of 2023 that $343 billion has been lost in revenue because people left the state of California. Yet we have the highest taxes. We have strict regulations. But mostly we have a spending problem. One of the big spending problem areas I consider to be corrupt is that Gavin decided that illegal aliens were eligible for Medi-Cal. Now, here's the problem. Doesn't matter even if you agree with him. We're broke, and we can't afford to give the medical services to the poor that are here legally. And yet, we're supposed to spend billions of dollars on people that aren't here legally. Now, that's robbing from our own poor for our new poor that we imported. Doesn't seem like a good idea. If we weren't spending all that money there, could we help the homeless maybe more? Or, oh, no, we can't, because when there was a call for an independent audit of the state, Gavin decided in his infinite wisdom that we shouldn't have that audit. We shouldn't have an audit when we're spending money like crazy. And you can't blame the Republicans or the independents, because they're in the super minority, meaning you don't need a single independent or Republican vote to pass something. So we have a system that's broken here in California, and it sounds like, well, there's no hope and we should just run. Well, the first part of identifying a problem is getting the word out. And we have multiple Republican candidates that are doing a good job getting the word out as far as the corruption. I think leading the way on getting that word out is Steve Hilton. Yeah. He's talking about, well, we absolutely need an audit. We need to look at what the problems are. The independent state analyst looked at what was happening in this state, and it identified 8 different departments that have error rates that are unacceptable, almost no cybersecurity, and no real oversight. So on the one hand, a lot of people are blaming all the fraud on private individuals. Okay, yes, they are responsible, but if we have a government system that doesn't have security, doesn't do double checks, doesn't look into things like what we're seeing in Minneapolis, what we're seeing in Minnesota, particularly Minneapolis, but in the state of Minnesota, we have all those problems in California. Steve Hilton started a basically whistleblower hotline, and he's identified $250 billion with a B dollars in fraud. And that hotline's only been up a month.
Really?
It's only been up a month.
Yeah.
And we have, because Gavin won't allow a true audit, we don't know. We don't know how much it is. But we know that there's all kinds of problems, that it's super easy. For instance, if you want a student loan in California, they've identified a huge percentage. Something like 30% of all of the loans that are applied for are students that are not going to college. They're just people filling out the loan application.
Hey, what's up with that?
What's up with that is we've set a system up where it's easy to cheat. I was listening this morning to a woman that's Somali by descent. She settled in Denmark, became part of their legislature, and has become somebody that is an advocate for Western values. But she was talking about Somali culture. Now, we have a large Somali population, not as big as Minnesota, but a significant population.
You're not going to talk about bananas right now, are you?
No bananas.
Oh, that was crazy.
That part of Africa, I don't think has many bananas. It's not very tropical. It's pretty dry.
You saw that quote, right?
Yes.
That's hilarious.
Yes, it
I
was.
don't know how many times she said, it's not, but it is. But it's so funny.
So, from their perspective, if the government is set up in a way where it's easy to take advantage, you would be stupid not to take advantage culturally. And this is coming from a Somali woman born in Somalia, that you're obligated to help your family, and that they see it as not just family, but like extended family, like a clan or a tribe. And if you weren't part of the corruption, you're just stupid, and it would be immoral not to take care of your family. So they're not seeing this from a Western perspective, corruption, as a bad thing, but as a way to take care of their family.
Wow.
I think that might extend to Democrats, because they want to hide all this.
So it's a culture thing.
It is a culture thing.
Okay.
But it is not a definitively Western culture thing, and that's part of the problem with letting huge numbers of people in, because I don't believe all cultures are equal. I believe that we've got something unique and special, and that's why everybody wants to come here. But if the people we're letting in don't believe in meritocracy, they don't believe in the rule of law, they don't value individual liberty, we got a problem coming, don't we?
Yeah. I thought you were talking about Newsom for a second there, because it's very similar.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
Look, I think Newsom encapsulates all of these problems. He is the woke left, except that he's a little less soulless than a lot of the woke left. Like, AOC might actually believe in something besides herself. Like, she's bought this idea of socialism, and I think she's profoundly wrong. I don't know that Newsom has a moral center. I see him as this power-hungry, evil man that will say and do anything.
So is he either the most narcissistic governor in America, or he does actually believe his own spin? What do you think?
I don't know that those are mutually exclusive.
Okay. Wow. Touche. There you go. Yeah.
You know, if you're truly a narcissist and you're a little bit of a psychopath, you easily believe your own BS. Why do you think he doesn't flinch? I've been there when I know he was telling an absolute lie. A real simple one is he talks about how Latinx, and he referred to people as Latinx or Latinx, and he did it several times on camera, conveniently.
Yeah.
And then when it became not a popular term, he looked right at the camera and said, my administration, my staff, and I have never used Latinx
Yes.
or Latinx.
Yeah.
And yet you can see the videos of both.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't flinch, and his body language didn't change. The only thing that slightly changed is his hand gestures get bigger the more he's lying. But otherwise, there's no tell.
His smile gets bigger and bigger and bigger. He's like, he really deflects. He's so slick when he does those things.
Yes, it is just
So
truly
I can see it now, though, in 2028 when he runs and he goes, "Look what I did in California." What does he have to say? I mean, his record, but people really buy into it. That's what I don't understand. You can see it.
If history doesn't mean anything,
Mm-hmm.
I really think that there's a hardcore leftist base that don't necessarily look at results because they don't matter, because what matters is intentions. That they view their leftism as their God.
Yeah.
Government's right, and we want to do the right thing with government, and thus you have to believe. It's like a leap of faith rather than looking at results.
They make it a religion in a sense. It doesn't change. This is what it is. Doesn't matter what happens. This is what it is.
Right. And because they look at hierarchy,
Mm-hmm.
since he's at the top of the hierarchy, everything must be forgiven.
Yeah.
Everything must be forgiven. In other words, he could lie to their faces, but he had good intentions, and he did it because the end justifies the means. And they're okay with living in a world where the end justifies the means rather than an actual morality. Well, that works very conveniently with my truth, right?
Yes, sir.
Or if I have my truth, then I can define my gender in any way I want, and it has nothing to do with reality. I can say that, well, men can be women and women can be men. They just have to decide. Heck, men can get pregnant, and I've been worried about this ever since I've heard.
You've been worried about getting pregnant?
Yeah, because I don't think it'd be a good look for me.
Okay. It reminds me of the Danny DeVito one. Is it a Junior? Was it Arnold? Arnold
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
Man, they don't make them like that no more. But yeah.
Well, but back when it was funny, now it's not quite so funny.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have somewhere in the realm of $50 billion in fraud, if we have Newsom refusing an independent audit, we have, as part of that $250 billion in fraud, $55 billion in fake unemployment gain.
Wow.
Claims, unemployment claims.
Yeah.
We've got huge error rates. You know, when they look at things like food stamps,
Mm-hmm.
an error would be that the money went to the wrong person. Well, a good error rate, and this blows my mind, is close to 5%. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Like the government's screwing up 5% of the time and the money's not going where it's supposed to. California, why? It has a much higher error rate. It's closer to 10, which is beyond what the federal government considers acceptable. The fact that the federal government considers anything above 1% acceptable blows my mind. But California is several times that. And yet we're doing nothing. So the state auditor identified, again, 8 different agencies that are responsible for billions of dollars that they know fraud's happening because money is going to people that are not eligible, whether that's because they're an illegal, because they're just a criminal, because it's somebody that made up a name and doesn't exist. And frankly, in California, if you came in as an illegal, you know that you can get a Social Security number in California? You can get a driver's license. And conveniently, why, you can vote. And those that say, oh, no, they can't.
Yep.
Last year, 450,000 people were called to jury duty. More than that in California, but 450,000 specifically had a problem. They were called to jury duty, and they weren't eligible for jury duty for one particular reason. And that's because they were not in the country legally. They were illegals. And you're not eligible for jury duty. Yet, how do you find out about jury duty? The only way that you get called up for jury duty is by your voter registration. So we know that more than 450,000 illegals or at least on the voter rolls, whether they're actually voting or not. They're on the voter rolls. California screwed up on so many levels.
Yeah. And what is that state? You probably know more than me that they banned is that you can't enforce. Border Patrol cannot enforce anything 1,000 feet or 40 feet, 1,000 feet from a polling station. So
Yes.
why? That's why would that even matter?
Aside from I think it's San Francisco, and there's a couple other small communities where they've given illegals the right to do things like vote in a school district, but it's not a federal election. It's not a statewide election. It's a local election.
Okay.
It makes zero sense. It just puts a spotlight and says, oh, wait, there's a problem here. So we spent a whole lot of time talking about the problem. And yes, California is full of problems. And if the country does something foolish like elects Gavin Newsom to president, and I'll be praying and working because, folks, it's not enough to sit on the sidelines and pray. You're also called to action. And if you're defending biblical values, wouldn't it be like good works?
Yeah, it's taking the stand against evil. If you're silent, you're basically saying it's fine.
Right. And how many churches are standing on the sidelines going, well, I can't do politics?
You know what, though? I would say there is a little bit of a revival, though, amongst the sleeping giant. When I say those of us in the different demos are like, you know what, we are not going to remain silent anymore. I think there's a little bit of uprise with it. We see a lot of people going back to faith and are holding their own pastors accountable to taking stands.
More people need to do that. It's a beginning movement as opposed to where I think it needs to be.
Yeah, it needs to be go a lot more further. But
well, it needs to be the norm that churches are out talking about values in their community. Mm-hmm. You don't have to take it as a right or left thing. You have to go, well, let's see, there's these commandments, and there's all of these stories in this incredible book written over 1,500 years that are about flawed men and women learning to do the right thing. Mostly.
Yeah.
Most of them persevered. There are also some stories of tragedy, but that's okay. There needs to be consequences. Yeah. So churches, particularly church leaders, need to be stepping out and going, wait a minute, I need to represent these values. Unless they believe in the separation of church and home.
Church and home, I like that. I think the pastors have been brought to be held accountable to take a stand, because they say, I'm not going to take a stand. I'm not going to talk about that over the pulpit. If you talk to me outside of here, I will tell you how I feel.
But they could still talk about, well, let's see. This is the issue of the day, whatever that issue is. And is how I believe it connects to biblical values. That would be completely fair in a sermon.
Mm-hmm. Or start a podcast.
Well, they could go that route, too.
I know pastors that have podcasts. I love it. They get to say a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is a crazy world. One of the places I saw a poll that gave me a lot of hope, though. This wasn't a specifically California poll, though California numbers are very similar to this. 84% of the nation believes that all 50 states should have voter ID. So that would take care of illegals voting. That would mean if we also went to voting in person and got rid of mail-in balloting, outside of people that I could buy into something for the military, and I could buy into something for those that are truly handicapped, but everybody else needs to show their butts up at the polls.
Wow. True.
But 84% nationwide. Now, what that tells me is, if I think of that from the left's perspective, is that 84% of this country is horribly, horribly racist and don't realize that minorities can't get an ID. Isn't that the conclusion you have to come to if you're thinking about it if you were a leftist? Or maybe there's a bigger story. Now, my producer, his skin shade is just slightly different than mine. I glow in the dark. He doesn't glow in the dark.
Wow. There you go. We're the same now.
Have you ever had trouble getting ID?
No, you know what? I can't. I don't know where it is on my map. Wait, no. I have a hard time. I can't read. No, I can read. I don't have. No, I have no problem with talking about. I have.
Huh. And every single
That's
person
racist.
I've ever met, aside from possibly a couple homeless people that I thought were actually crazy and drugged out, they don't seem to have any problem getting an ID. They can use the internet.
Mm-hmm. They have phones.
Even if they're using an Obama phone, they can operate it.
Yeah.
Frankly, if they're a kid, they can probably operate it better than me, no matter what their skin color.
Yeah.
So there still is some common sense. There's a place where I consider there to be real hope. There's still some common sense.
Yeah.
With that common sense, we can retake our country, but we have to become involved, informed, and then we need to act.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a little while ago about Tom McDonald, and you got me curious. I had to look it up, and I love the lyrics. The propaganda is on every channel. They think we stupid, like the truth is too hard to handle. It goes on so many different things with the pre-chorus. I swear the devil lives in California. He's a politician. He's passing bills through chaos and division. Yeah, the devil lives in California. Should be in prison. He goes on and on. I won't read it, but yeah, that's a great lyrics there.
And folks, the reason I'm not playing this is because some of the social media platforms I'm on have really continually flagged us anytime we've tried to play even a little tiny bit of music, even if it's just for a short period of time.
And we followed the Fair Use Act. We can respond to things. It's crazy. Yeah.
So that's why I'm not playing it. I would recommend that people take a listen. I love that culture, and music would be part of culture, is starting to embrace some common sense traditional ideas. And Tom McDonald's not the only person doing that. Tyson James.
Yeah, and he had Ben Shapiro, right, on the track or something?
Yes, he did.
That's crazy. I'm not really a fan anymore of Ben Shapiro, but he has his place in the conversation, and that was hats off.
Look, if Ben hadn't staked out the ground of Israel first rather than America first, I'd take him more seriously. But he's decided he's Israel first, and I guess he's an American somewhere around fourth.
Oh, you're gonna get us in trouble going there, but
I don't care. I've lost all respect. His turning point speech, where he went after all of these other conservatives.
Oh yeah.
And acted like a child. Yes, Ben, I'm calling you a child.
Yes, Steve Bannon called him. I agree everything that Steve Bannon said. Right? He's loves Israel, but he is an Israel first guy.
Right.
He's reasonable.
And I see Ben as Israel about 1 through 4, and then he might consider that America might be acceptable afterwards. You know, the place where he's a citizen and makes all his money.
Wow. Yeah, I'm with you. I was raised in the church, and we were taught to respect Israel for what happened there biblically, and you know all that goes with that. And I will advocate for Israel, but to a point, even people in Israel disagree with Israel on a lot of government policy. It doesn't mean that we give a pass on everything. So, yeah, there's a big conversation on the right. They're kind of pinning each other against each other, and I don't like what I saw at the M-Fest. That was not.
If it would have been a healthy, respectful debate,
Yeah.
But Ben basically decided to use the tools of the woke, called cancellation, and said, well, you shouldn't even listen to this person. Wait, that's not somebody that's for individual liberty and believes in the First Amendment. Yeah. That's a petty child going, Israel, Israel.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Ben. We've kind of lost it, even though I don't think everything he's done is bad, and he is often a smart, articulate guy. But you don't get to behave like a child. I was truly pleased that Tucker was much more of an adult. And then during that AmFest, our vice president stepped in and bridged the gap. In other words, he was the adult in the room. And so J.D. Vance left me hopeful in that.
How did you approach it? I remember
he talked about how, yes, we would have disagreements, but that we have to remember. He basically reminded us of Reagan's rules. If you agree with somebody at 80%, You shouldn't be trying to tear them down. You should be trying to build them up and convince them on that 20%.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I can't say it with the eloquence of J.D. Vance, and I can't say it with the speed of Ben Shapiro.
Very fast talker.
Yeah, you'd have to like.
I'm a Tucker fan. I get a lot of slack from people that I love, and they love me too. But yeah, I like how he explains it. He says
He's real and he's honest, though.
Yeah,
I don't always agree, but he's real and he's honest.
Yes.
I don't want his voice shut down. I appreciate the fact that he might have a different perspective. And guess what? Unless I was a narcissist, it might occur to me that there might be something that I could learn from somebody else who's intelligent.
And Megyn Kelly, she's been a pro-Israel. I've been standing with Megyn for a long time, and she's been very pro-Israel. She would even call herself a Zionist, and she is now taking heat for just being friends with Tucker, being friends with Candace and others. So that whole cancel culture, we can't have that on the right. So if those of you listening, please don't cancel people just because they see things different. Use arguments, debate.
Or you don't even have to listen. But going out of your way to cancel and try to get everybody else to not listen to a different opinion is the wrong way to go. The answer to free speech you don't like is more free speech. So we still got that. That's one of the places of what I consider to be absolute hope here in this country, that we can have a debate. We can profoundly disagree. We can even have people that I consider to be profoundly anti-American. In other words, they're for socialism. They don't believe in capitalism. They don't believe in meritocracy. They'll buy into the diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is as anti-American as it gets, because they want equality of outcomes, not equality of opportunity. And those people can exist. We can even have a communist run in New York City. Now, I'm praying that he profoundly fails, but that's because I don't believe in communism. Not because I don't believe that we should have a different opinion there. I'm hoping that his behavior and his failure will awaken the people of New York City to, oh, wait, there is no free lunch. That why, just because I'm not in the upper 1%, if I do something to the upper 1%, there will be consequences, because those people that make more money, and frankly, if they worked harder, they had better ideas, maybe they deserve more money.
Yeah.
I'm not coming from a place of envy, and the left seems to come from a place of envy and victimhood. And I don't think that's useful. I think the idea of picking yourself up by your bootstraps, that doesn't mean you're always doing it alone. You might have a group of friends that are going, get off your butt, giving you the encouragement you need, helping you with tools that would allow you to be successful, providing a support structure. Well, all that needs to happen. Guess what? Those things happen in a couple communities. I can think of a couple. The Nigerians, they have very dark skin. They come to America, and the ones that become citizens, they're one of the most successful ethnic groups. They don't spend a bunch of time going, well, but I'm black, so I'm oppressed. They go, wow, there's opportunity. I can make some money. It's time to go. Another group that has a family structure that's really doing well, East Indians. They're doing better than whites on average. They're kicking butt. They've got a family structure. They save money. They value education. They've embraced the idea that their hard work means something. And they're kicking butt. Both of those communities, they don't have my skin color. They've embraced the American dream, which I believe, while it started largely for white men, we came close. We almost fixed some of those problems early on during our founding, but we did not. But we've slowly moved towards the color of your skin doesn't matter. It's the work the content of your character, your emotional stability, and that whole great factor called luck. And the more I work, the more of it I seem to have. It's like you set yourself up for the opportunities of luck, or you work so that you get God's blessings. So I don't want anybody to think there's not hope. We've got, in California, the top two people currently in the polls are both Republicans. They represent about 35% of the vote. Right now, the Democrats are representing about 40% of the vote, with the balance being undecided. Now, there's some people farther down on the Republican ticket that I absolutely think are great, like Leo Zaki. Don't know if he's going to break through, but you should at least listen to what he has to say, because it's got a message of freedom, and there's a lot of solutions there.
I love what he says, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm not a huge fan of Sheriff Bianco, but okay, he's resonating with a lot of people, and would he be better than absolutely every Democrat running? Head and shoulders better. I'm hoping it's Steve Hilton. At least at this point, he's got the best shot of people that I like. I believe he's got a positive message. I believe he's got a plan. He's also doing something that is not usually done in politics. He's picking candidates that are running for statewide office, like lieutenant governor. And he's combining his campaign with theirs. In other words, they're working together. So it's like a slate of candidates are running. And I'm hoping he's going to be successful with this, because he's got some great people running alongside him, and they're trying to work together. And that's something you don't see very often in politicians or in politics, where broad coalitions are working together to try to change something. California is worth changing. I see it as a land of opportunity. Heck, I just expanded my business recently, made it a little bit bigger.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. But I'm taking a big risk to do so. But it's because I believe that there is still opportunity, that I believe that California can change. That we've got all of these elements. We've got great people in California. We've got amazing natural resources. We've got an agricultural base here in the valley. We've got more manufacturing than any other state, even though we're doing our best to run them out, with a different set of leaders at the top, a different governor. The whole tone could change. California could turn back into the paradise that I believe it is, or could be again. Folks, don't just sit on the sidelines. Learn your constitutional rights. Participate in government. Make sure you vote. Make sure you talk about your values with your friends, your family. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist. Have a great day.